right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Jupyter community call in the month of August. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's a great turnout. These are a lot of fun. We try to do these every month, usually the last Tuesday of the month for future note. And then we try to keep you updated either on the Discourse channel or on the Jupyter mailing list or Twitter account. So keep an eye out for that. So yeah, the format of these are kind of always evolving. The goal in some sense is to create kind of a space like a virtual JupyterCon, especially since we don't have a JupyterCon this year, that we can use for anyone to come in and present a short demonstration of maybe something they've been working on in the Jupyter ecosystem. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly Jupyter development. It could be just something cool you're doing with Jupyter. And so this is really open to anyone and everyone to share. We usually try to keep the demonstrations to be about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we open up for questions from anyone who's on the call. Cool. So with that, we'll go ahead and so we usually start off with some short reports, any celebrations or shout outs. And so we try to get people to post things before the call, of course, but feel free to add things now if they come across your mind. And I'll walk through the short reports, and then we'll go into the demonstrations that we have on the list. And we'll just see, we'll get as far as we can. If we don't get through all of them before the end of the hour, then we can either ask that person to meet next month, or keep them on the call and people are free to leave. Cool. So the one thing I really wanted to point out in the short reports was Tracking Jupyter newsletter for this month is out. You should go check that out. That's an awesome resource put out by Tony Hurst and others that provide a lot of things that are happening in Jupyter that as a core dev of Jupyter, I'm not even aware of. And so it's really fun to see just new things pop up there. And actually a few of the things that we have down in our agenda items get shout outs there. So Tony comes across some amazing stuff. I don't know how he does all that research, but definitely check that out. The link is actually in the HackMD. Cool. Does anybody else have anything they want to share that hasn't been added to the agenda for short reports?
Can you just post the agenda in the chat just as a reminder of where it is?
Of course.
Is this a place we can give quick release announcements or just quick updates? Or
Absolutely. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jason.
So Jupyter Lab, we've had a bunch of patch releases. We're up to 1.0.9 right now. 1.1 RC is out. Please test it. It's on CondaForge and PyPI. And the plan is to cut 1.1 tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Okay. With that, I think we'll go into our agenda items. So these are, again, demos. So goal is hopefully that the people showing off these demos can share their screen and give a live demonstration of what they've built or what they're working on. So we'll start with we have 2 demonstrations from the Cal Poly intern teams for the summer. And so we'll start with that. The first one we have on the list, if they're ready, is the rich text Jupyter Lab extension. You guys ready? They're right next door to me, so this is easy for me to ask them.
Sorry about that. Oh no, all the sound's going to be on in the room. Okay, hello, I'm Isabella. And
I'm Derek.
And I'm the design intern. We're going to be walking you through a rich text extension we have working in Jupyter Lab.
Let me share that. Okay, do you guys see everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as you can see, there's no longer borders on the cells. And when you just start typing, instead of having to run the cell, you just see rich text right away. So we can bold, italic, strike through, and all those things. We've worked really hard to preserve existing Markdown features so that this isn't cutting anything you could have already done with Markdown, but instead that you see what you're typing right away instead of having to run and then go back and edit and deal with that experience. Everything will stack nicely, so like we can do title text style along with any other styling that's happening. So like we can write a title and then bold it We also have spell check as a part of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's not really working right now. But
Okay, well we'll figure that out
yes.
then. And right, the same
Yeah.
like bulleted, numbered list, block quotes that toggle on and off.
Let me do the list.
Yeah,
first.
do this.
And then we have the numbered list again. Which rough code? Yeah, and then we have
Yeah, block quotes, which they toggle on and off and don't go infinitely, which is a great improvement there.
Yeah.
Do you want to skip to math?
Sure.
Talk about math. You know more what you're doing.
Yeah. So with math, we can recognize the $ delimiters like how we do in just regular Markdown cell, except now when we close the $, we immediately get the rendered math. So this is for inline, and then we also have block math. So if we just do it also will account for any kind of white space you put for the math, as it does in the regular Markdown cell. And yeah, that is the math feature. Oh, also you can edit the math. So when you double click on it, it'll show up, and then you can edit it. And then to re-render it, you press enter right after the $, and then it'll re-render that. Yeah.
Do you want to do that? Good.
We can do code.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, so yeah, we have both inline and code blocks. Like currently, inline just does the styling, where code blocks you can still define the language through the interface now, which is nice because it will also tell you if the language isn't something that CodeMirror supports. So because it has a fuzzy searching capabilities. The other nice thing is that you do see the syntax highlighting right away, which was already in CodeBlocks in Jupyter Lab, but now you also see like all the styling, so you see the indent and everything, where before it doesn't change when you run it, basically is the idea.
Yeah,
Want to test that? Run the cell.
Oh, sure.
Ta-da.
Yes, it showed up, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can move around the code block with either clicking, or to get out of it, you can press down. And if there's like no content below it, it'll just create a new paragraph, so you can start with fresh content. You can do links.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, you can link things, so if you just select this, you can apply a link to that, so let's just do that. And then we can deselect a link. And then there's also image capabilities, so we can link to an image. So we have that. So this is, and then you can also upload an image. So if we just get something like that, it's kind of a big image, but and then I think that's what's happening. Yeah, and those are all the features that we have currently.
Any questions?
I just want to point out that they did this over the summer. This is amazing work. Well done.
Yeah, this is awesome. Can I have this for code cells? Is there a way to configure this so that code cells can do the same thing?
I'm not sure, so right now we're using a prose mirror editor that's just replacing this entire like Markdown cell editor.
Right. So can you replace the code cell editor instead of the Markdown cell editor so that I can write Markdown in code cells and parse out the code?
I don't think you would have like the same like code running ability.
Yes, I can. Don't worry about the code running ability.
Okay.
I have an extension that does that already.
Okay.
Is there a way to make a configuration option or something for this so that if I use this, I can say, hey, for code cells, I want this also, because this is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Cool.
We can like probably use similar code to how we just replaced the Markdown cell editor. Yeah.
Zach can clearly explain more about my intent.
Okay.
I wonder if we can make if the editors are extension points or not. Like if we made the editors extension points so that people could swap in editors, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we were considering like, or we were talking about like this kind of multi-editor thing where it doesn't have to be just like default as code bearer. Like you can decide what the editor is, but we haven't looked more into that yet.
Well, Darian, there could be like a terminal editor or something, right? Where it's like, hey, I just want to open up a terminal here.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what the actual extension point looks like and what it needs to give back as an interface, I think there's a lot of flexibility.
Hey, great job, everyone. Awesome.
Quick
Yeah, thank
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just also want to point out, I think this is your first Jupyter Lab extension. Like you came into this not having ever worked with Jupyter Lab before. Amazing work.
Thank you.
Is there a way to see the Markdown source?
Yeah, so if let's open it as JSON, and then, so with Prosemare, we can serialize the entire thing to Markdown. So if we do this, then we have all of the Markdown.
Is there a way to see in the notebook interface the Markdown source,
not right
like
now.
to toggle back and forth?
What if you switch to a raw cell or a code cell? What happens? So take that Markdown cell and swap the drop down. Look at how sick that is. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it just, yeah.
Got
So
it. And you can modify it and then switch back?
I think so. Let's try that. Yeah.
How cool. How cool.
Yeah.
Is this your guys' first demo?
Roughly. Yeah, with
Yeah.
all the features, yes.
You crushed it. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
You guys
Cool,
are
thanks.
muting yourself.
Okay.
So a question, how is it handled when you're toggling back and forth between Markdown where there's a feature that isn't available in Markdown, such as the large text, or I think I saw strike through as an option?
Oh yeah. So Prosemare uses a Markdown parser called Markdown it. And so right now, like the online isn't working just because we actually handle the case because this is inline HTML instead of just like where strike through is like with the tildes. And so
Okay, so the variant of Markdown you're using supports that.
So Prosemare is using Common Mark, and even though strike through isn't a part of Common Mark, we have the ability to just I guess serialize this. Or I think yeah.
In the raw Markdown, it turns into I gotta feed that. Sorry. In the raw Markdown, it turns to just HTML tags.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would still render in the old Markdown once you actually run the Markdown cell.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
I'll just mention in the classic notebook and in stock Jupyter Lab, I think we use GitHub flavored Markdown, which does have strike through.
Do I stop sharing?
Yes, we do use it.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any more questions for them? Awesome. Thank you, guys. Good job. Awesome. So I should say that is available. You can, right now we don't have it actually on NPM yet, but you can check out the link that we have in the HackPad or HackMD, sorry, that you can install from source directly. We'll have releases of that probably this week. So you can start using those really soon. All right, cool. We'll go to our next thing on the list, and that's also from the Jupyter Cal Poly intern team. Marissa's going to lead us off here, and this is the Python package installer Jupyter Lab extension.
Just getting it.
Hey, can y'all see my screen? Yes. Okay, cool. I'll just show you a basic usage, and then I'll do a few more things. So mine is the package installer. It installs PyPy packages into your current active kernel here via pip. So I'm just going to import a module I don't have yet, and I get the error. And then you can go ahead and use the input box to install that package. And you can see the logs in case anything went wrong. But now we can rerun it, and you can see that it's imported here. And this, as I said before, is installed in your current environment. So if you change it, that's reflected. And then also right now I'm working on a feature that recognizes the package you don't already have. So when I first ran that cell and I didn't have names yet, it's reflected here. And when that happens, I'm gonna open up a dialog or throw some box that says, do you want to install this package? And so that way, if you click on the yes button, it will automatically populate here and it will install for you.
One step further, that'd be cool if that was a setting to automatically do that, just as you're typing.
Like in real time, like if you're.
Yeah, I think there like there's VS Code extensions that do stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to pip install -e my directories too, because that's the best practice that would be helpful for other people to use, I think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Are there any questions?
Conda?
We are like managing Conda environments through a UI.
Or just installing Conda packages, maybe a toggle between like pip and Conda.
Yeah, since I use pip magics, that would easily like translate to Conda packages also. So that would be a future step.
Yeah, I think the problem there is going to be that the Conda environment might be on the path, but not necessarily activated. So you'd have to get to where Conda is so through some sort of circuitous path, through Systa executable or something. So it's not as easy as using pip.
Got it.
This is great. It's awesome for people to be able to visually manage these tools. I think new users will appreciate that when they're learning what all of the stuff means.
I think especially this pop-up of some kind, do you want to install this when you run into the error? That probably is a game changer for many new users driving and running into an error.
Yeah, definitely if they have a notebook that they get from someone else pre-filled with packages and some code, they can easily resolve those before they begin.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome. Any more questions from Marissa?
So where is this code located on GitHub, etc.?
So there's an organization on GitHub called Jupyter Cal Poly, and it's in a repo called Package Installer.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I can show them.
Cool, yeah. The link to the actual package is also in the ActMD file. There, so awesome, cool. So we'll, thank you, Marissa, for presenting. We'll go ahead and move to the next item on the demo list. This one's from Tony Sass, This is going from a gist to getter. Are you on the, yeah, you're still on the call, Tony. You want to lead this off? Tony?
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great. Awesome. So this is going to be fun. Zach, can you drop that gist into the chat for me? So I think there are quite a few people who are interested in blogging with notebooks. And I've basically tried like every route there is. So one of our older projects is called Deathbeds. And Deathbeds is kind of this amalgamation of notebooks where we're trying to figure out like and so on and so forth. My connection doesn't crash here. Okay, so one of the things that I've been doing is I've been putting notebooks into gist. My connection doesn't feel all that great. Okay, so one of the things that I do oftentimes is I share notebooks with gist, and I've been trying to teach other folks how to do that, and you know, some of the benefits of doing that also. So I want to click and fork this. So one of the things that people often allude to is that reproducibility is hard, and I think with gist and for small enough ideas, it doesn't necessarily have to be. So if we look at this notebook that Zach just shared with us, it's got schema.org in it, and it's got Pydantic in it. And these are some tools that I'll talk about while we get this thing built. But one of the easiest ways to go and take a notebook that Zach has made and make it reusable is to go and do requirements.txt, Pydantic, and I'll probably want some RDF-lib. Let's get some pandas in here and maybe some matplotlib just in case. And then the last one that we wanted was schema.org. The schema.org file is a little bit greedy, Zach. It brings in a lot of stuff. So we're gonna update this gist, right? Find handle it, right? So now we go and take our gist. It's being uploaded, and my connection's kind of stinky right now, unfortunately. All right, so we get to, oh, this is not my binder, it's mybinder.org. I always do this. So we go over to my binder, and one of the things that Binder didn't have when it first came out was the ability to use gist repos, and now it does. So if I drop this gist in here, and then I do gist, and then I hit launch, and we go and watch everything happen. Well, another thing we might do is we might take this link here and go over, come on. We're not even gonna have the right version of the notebook here, are we? Let me try and update this gist one more time. Anyway, even though this notebook won't work, sometimes this does happen to me. What we can do is we can wait for it to build, which shouldn't take too long. The schema.org thing is there. And then we get the YAML. While this is going on, yeah, so if we go and look at my personal gist here, this will be worth it when it actually happens. Okay, great. Now it's been defined, but it was put into our build, right? Yep, which is great. So now it's running, and generally when I do this, conda is an option. But by choosing pip, things get into your things build a little bit quicker. Sometimes what we might do is we might just spin up a binder just with an idea. Sometimes we might intend to go back and make changes. So for just reason, I binders on them so that I can go back and reuse them later on, and I can also share them with other people. Cool, so we're pushing the image. It's really hard to keep talking through a build. If this was NPM, I'd have to talk like 10 times longer, wouldn't I? Getting there, Zach. Observation with doing this, I know that you're using, you just made a commit to telemetry that uses Pydantic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're using it to kind of explore validating schemas in a much cleaner way. It allows you to define those things like schemas in Python directly, so that makes it helpful for both auto-generating JSON schemas or YAML files from that, but also for testing the data that you're bringing in that are defined by some schema or follow some schema. And so we've been exploring Pydantic for telemetry. Looks like we might have lost Tony here. Tony, are you still there? We may have to come back to Tony. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. And when Tony comes back online, we'll have him follow up after the next demonstration. I think the next one on the call is Saul. So are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Just
cool. Are you ready?
Yeah. So hopefully my bandwidth is okay. Let's try this. So what I wanted to talk about is a few different extensions that we've been building under the name Rich Context. And so one of these is a data explorer for Jupyter Lab. And the idea is that you can often find data sets in lots of different places in Jupyter Lab. Like here, there's one in a notebook, right, that we output. I have a CSV file on your file system. You might have a SQL database that you want to view data from. And oftentimes, if you're writing an extension in Jupyter Lab to view data, you want to view as many different types of data as you can from whatever sources that are available to you. You don't really care if this table came from a notebook or from a plot. So that was a punchline. So the Data Explorer is a new UI, a new plugin that you can use. And so here we see we have this notebook. And if we look at our file system here, we can see we have this notebook, this table notebook. And we can look at this fourth cell here. We see that this pandas data frame is actually output as data inside the notebook. So if we looked at the notebook, we'd see this as JSON in the output because we set. And one thing that can view this JSON is the Interact Data Explorer. So we can click this button, and now we see we have this interactive kind of explorer for this data set here. Example of how this Interact Data Explorer doesn't really care where this data came from. All it cares about is it can handle a certain type of data, which is this data resource MIME type. So some other examples here, we can actually, if we have a link to data, like to a CSV file, we can also view that like in the normal grid widget. And so the idea is we have, and if we have like a file on disk here, a CSV file, we can also view that, except I didn't save it yet. So the idea is we have a uniform way of talking about where data is located using URLs and the type of data that we want using MIME types. And then we can define converters that move between different MIME types of a data set. So one example of this is Max has been working on HDF5 viewer. So if we have, here we have some HDF5 data sets, and he's implemented an extension that hooks into the data registry and allows you to browse HDF5 data sets and then look at their grids. And so he also implemented this with a custom contents manager that you see over here. So when you double click this file, it opens up this contents manager and you can view the data this way. So there's similar ways of tackling a problem, but it's a bit cleaner with the data registry because you don't have to, the current contents management is pretty tied to the idea of having a file and kind of file-based operations and things like that. Whereas the data registry doesn't really care about what your data is. It just has to be able to view it in different ways.
Max actually made a PR this morning to fix that and thread MIME types through on our own contents manager.
Oh, nice. That's cool. So yeah, so the idea here is that we can kind of more easily, if you're writing an extension that views data, you can more easily plug it into different sources by using this view. Yeah, so that's the first thing. And then the other one that builds on that is this linked data browser. And so this is something we've been exploring, so that if you have, say, a data set on disk or in a notebook, and you want to know information about that, you can. So here we see we have this publication. And this publication has lots of like metadata about it, right? We have different creators, people who created it. We have its publisher. And if we click on one of these people, we can see information about them as well. So this is, so this is another publication. And the idea is that this would be tied to the data set. So as you're browsing a data set, you'll see metadata about that data set as you browse. So this linked data browser uses, under the covers, just JSON LD format to describe your metadata. And it's agnostic to what actually, what keys or what, what types you're talking about. But it just allows you to specify metadata about resources that you care about in JupyterLab. Yeah, so it's, as you can tell, the UI for both of these is still pretty rough, and so we're still in progress there. But if you have any places you think that this might be useful, there might be overlap between these projects and something you're working on, we'd love to collaborate with you. So, like this HDF5 viewer, I think was a good example of a good collaboration. So yeah, please reach out, and we're more than happy to answer questions or see if these could help you with your use case. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Saul. That was awesome. Does anybody have questions for Saul?
Actually, I wanted to ask about the life cycle of, say, you open a notebook and you close a notebook. Those data sources, are they tied to the notebook, or are they tied to a kernel session?
The data resource, like the showing the grid of an output, like that kind of thing.
That and the fact that you were showing like each cell in a notebook, I was just assuming that when you close the notebook, that disappears.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't disappear. It's tied to the notebook model, actually. So it basically so it when you view a notebook, it basically says, hey, do we already have a notebook model for this? If so, use that one. Otherwise, open it. Just like this, it's the same logic when you open a notebook. It says, do I already have a model? If not, then create a new one for this notebook.
Okay, but if you close that notebook, does the...
Here, let me present again, and I'll show you. So here, so one interesting thing is, here we have this notebook. Let me find the table again. So it's in cells for outputs. We can open this, and then we can actually reload the page, and hopefully this actually stays. We don't have the notebook open, but it knows how to get from this file to the the contents. Because if we look at where's my status bar? Hold on, show status bar. So if you see that, can you see this URL on the bottom? It's a little small, maybe. Do you see that?
I think it's cut off. I'm not seeing it.
It's on the very bottom of my screen. No.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So this is the URL for this data set here. So it points to the fourth output, the fourth output, or the fourth cell, the 0th output, and then this MIME type. So when it reloads the page, it knows how to basically, rehydrate this model.
And what if I want to close it? What if I don't want that model open anymore? Is there a way to get rid of it?
Yeah, so the way that, let me pull up there's a debugger here. So let's find that. Here it is. Yeah, this is it here. So we see we have this data resource, and we see these are the different marks for it. Mm-hmm. And so we see one of them is this MIME data. We see that this is the actual data. Yeah, so and all of these objects are actually observables, so which are like, they're like signals in JupyterLab, but they have a way to say, like, if you unsubscribe, basically, you have a cleanup. So
Okay.
if no one is subscribing to this thing, then it can get cleaned up, basically.
I
If that
see.
makes sense. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks.
Any other questions for Saul? All right, thank you so much to all for presenting. That was awesome. We'll add you have a Discourse post open for this whole work too as well, right? Just beyond just the repos, we can add to the ACMD.
Yeah, let me add that. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, so check that out definitely on Discourse, and feel free to pipe in on the discussion that's happening there as well. All right, does anybody, so if nobody else has anything they want to share, we'll stop the recording.
Do you mind if I finish up real quick?
Yeah. You're back, Tony.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, this is where we get to play. Sometimes binders faster some days than other days. Okay. So I made this binder, and one of the things fun to do when you get your binders is if you've got friends, if you have friends. So here we've got this little hash. Can you guys see the status bar? I don't know if that's a thing that's visible. But anyway, if you take one of these little hashes and then you ask, or you look for the token, and then that hash, you'll get a token back. So now if I share that in the chat screen, okay, so I'm going to share that in the chat now. So everybody would be working off of the same running binder, which I think is kind of funny. And then what we can kind of do is we can sort of go through the binder together and talk about what it does. I know I stopped sharing my screen. Let me share that again. So, you guys can do malicious things, and please choose to if you do desire. But we're going to go through Zach's code. So I'm running it now, and all of your kernels are updating at the same time that this is. And we have some errors happening here. Oh, Pydantic's not defined. Okay, so that looks like something like this. All right, so Zach's notebook does not restart and run all, which is a good goal for little tiny ideas. But basically, by using these Pydantic base models here, we can start to define JSON pure Python, which is super cool. And what Zach is doing this specifically for schema.org, which is a semantic place. This one doesn't, I don't know what it's doing. We'll keep going. Whenever somebody sends me one of these things, it's like, well, what's this thing going to do? So here we go. Now this is what a thing is. Say what?
Oh, that was supposed to throw an error because it was an invalid object.
Great. Well, that's a good example of a test, and a little bit informally. Right? Where are we supposed to get that error here? Was that the validation error right here? Let's just say that this were it. What we might want to say here is we might want to say import JSON schema and then accepts JSON schema error or something like that, and put an assertion, or some kind of you could use PyTest in here. You could actually import if we have PyTest. You can do imp with PyTest raises, and that would be a valid way to assert whether or not that does raise an assertion error. So this is a super cool notebook because I'm working on stuff similar to this, and there's a lot of different ways to approach this because the ecosystems are so large. And I learned stuff from Zach specifically about this package here, which is schema.org. It's a Python package, which is crazy. So with that, I'll kind of stop. But I encourage putting, the other thing I want to say here is that this is a nice notebook because it's got 2 modules. Putting 2 things together is a really reasonable place to start in a small notebook. And we're not trying to write object-oriented programming. We're trying to use high-level packages and put them together and create neat things. So thanks for sharing, Zach, and letting me critique this a little bit.
Thanks, Tony. Any questions for Tony?
Yes, Tony, can you please show the process of creating the link that allowed other persons to connect to this my binder instance?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this, I don't know, is Tim on the call or Chris? This is not a good security practice. I just think it's funny. And please don't ever put security token. But basically, if you search for a token in the status bar, you'll get a bunch of binders that you would have opened up. And then if you find the specific hash to the machine that you opened up originally, then you can share this token. So like sometimes what I might say people would do is to go to binder, and then everybody goes and makes does a duplicate, and then everybody can kind of be working off of their own one, or you just use binder as it was meant to be used. But at least this way, you know, one person suffers the cost of building, and then everybody can sort of benefit for a short period of time.
That's cool. Thank you.
I'm the only one who endorses this. I think I feel like I have to say that, so you don't get in trouble.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. We'll, with that, we can end this call unless anybody has anything they want to share last minute. Go ahead and type in. If not, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. We'll leave the call up. Feel free to chat and hang out on the call as long as you like. And then, yeah, with that, we'll have our next community call in a month. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach.